First and foremost, gentlemen, a very, very warm welcome. And as I said, this particular conclave is always very close to my heart. It brings to me, a kind of deliberation which are very, very important for us to devise print and carve out a roadmap for the sector. And I think none other than a group of the top brains, group of handpicked CEOs who will define the roadmap for all of us. And this time, looking at the kind of pandemic what we are going through, I think the topic has been extremely, extremely apt. Guiding the way with social distancing and economic distancing, and of course the global CEO's vision. So today we are not only talking about social distancing, but which has also pushed us to get to adopt to economic distancing. That means the time has come when we need to very, very briskly retool and regroup our approaches towards semblance of normalcy. And so I think if you look at the pointers, you all have been kind of brainstorming on this. We're talking about how do we enhance and manage the skill sets, adapting to the new, and of course the vocal for local, which is today the mantra which has been given by the Prime Minister, Mr. Modi. And and of course not to forget about the risk mitigation, the financial turnarounds, and of course we all know that our supply chains have gone under a lot of stress. So what are those challenges and what those possible impact? And then through this panel, I would like them to evolve a strategy that how do we address these challenges, so that this becomes our future course. And so over to Mr. Eckhart Gouras, who is a managing director with us. We all know him so very fondly. He's a managing director with PV Magazine in Germany. Our very esteemed panelists, starting with Dr. Hitesh Doshi, has been a great ambassador for India, in terms of solar. And, I think he's been one of the ambassadors for our renewable energy expos as well. He's been very, very kind, with his presence and organization Waaree Group joining us since many years now. Mr. Santosh Khatelsal, I always tell him when I meet him, I said, Santoshji, whenever I catch up with you, I always go home richer. The kind of intense deliberations we get into, it shows that the gentleman has such a huge love and passion for the sector. Mr. Chiranjeev, I've off late started calling him as a silver jubilee man, because I think very, very few Indian corporates who have spent good 25 years in the sector. We have seen it from, to the likes of Mother Bears, all those big names at one point of time, today not to be seen, but somebody who has stuck to the guns, and see from senior Mr. Saluja, who has been a pioneer, and today we have his son, who is driving it with a lot of aplomb and expertise. So they are celebrating their 25th Silver Jubilee this time. So it's a 25 years of Premier Energies into the business. Manish Narula, and from senior director from business development and sales, Jinko. I think that's a global household name today when it comes to our solar fraternity. Pinaki, MD and CEO of AMP Energy India. Once again, I think we have a pretty old association with him, and Pinaki has always been kind, and sometimes he's also been a kind of a shifting between a CEO conclave and a finance roundtable, what we have at our physical shows. And of course, the first time we are catching up with Mr. Henry Heung Soon Choi from who's the India country head for LS Electric. And so over to you, Eckhart. Now, I think we have set the tone, we have set the context. Over to you, and I'm pretty eager to see that what kind of a roadmap and a blueprint, this forum will evolve for all of us. Over to you, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rajneesh. It's an honor to moderate this very distinguished session with our distinguished panelists you just introduced. And it's a big joy to work with Informa India. And I was just looking at the numbers of India, and it's really impressive how from a very low 30 megawatts 10 years ago, now we're at 1,000 times, we're at 35 gigawatts of PV in India. And we, of course, have the very ambitious goal to reach 100 gigawatts by 2022, of which 60 is utility scale, and the rest is rooftop. It's challenging, and the figures just came out, I think, yesterday, how COVID-19 has impacted the Indian economy in the second quarter, and it's going to be a big challenge. But I think we have some of the actors here have been so instrumental in getting us to 35 gigawatts and more. So I think it'll be an interesting discussion how we can handle these challenges and move forward. So we discussed before the session today some topics, but before we get into some of these topics, I would like each panelist to explain how the global COVID-19 pandemic has impacted him personally and his company, and how it has changed the way you do business. So maybe we can start with the module makers. We have three of them. Maybe Dr. Hitesh Doshi, maybe you want to start.
Good morning, and thank you. Thank you very much for arranging this conference. And thank you, Dr. Eckhart, for inviting me first. Personally, I should tell you that about the COVID, the change. I have been traveling almost 20 days in a month, and probably sometimes having more than 6 flights in a week. So that has been completely changed now. And of course, I'm putting some more weight also on that case. So it has changed the entire personal life for the any sales and business development man, which I have been. Of course, meeting the people on the business and understanding, I'm not having the similar comfort what I have been in a meeting personally on the video conferences and other things. But still, we learn a lot now that a lot of things can be done by sitting in your office or home. You don't need to travel. Business side, there was a huge impact for us on this due to COVID and the changes. The highest change was you need to stop the production. And since there is not much installations going on, you do not have the much demand. And you're always worried. In the production, you have a lot of people working very close to each other. It may be a packing or it may be a bus bar or wherever they are working. The distance between the people are not much and the machines are not designed. And it was never thought in the past when these machines were designed that we have to keep at least 2 meters of the distance when the two people are working together. So it's a huge challenge. Companies like us have more than 3,000 people today working sometimes in one building, more than 1,000 people. And you're always worried every day. So there is a lot of stress internally about the health of the people, of course. And the business side, you have to keep on running certain operations and you don't have the demand what it was been planned for that. The learning when it comes, the first thing came like you started, and Mr. Rajneesh also said that the supply chain, we have to start thinking differently what has been there on a supply chain side. The labor side, we have to start thinking differently because of a lot of migration. Being a factories in Gujarat, there was huge labor right from the northeast to the south. And this entire migration happened, who have been trained for the years, who have been developed, and suddenly they are not inside your factory now. The third thing comes towards the machine supply parts, the machine maintenance and all that. Again, this is a part of the supply chain which you never thought that you will have such problems and you will not get these parts at certain time or certain things. So as a manufacturer, it has been quite challenging and we have to keep on learning from this. And we are learning from there and developing ourselves continuously.
Yeah, very interesting, those challenges from the labor side and the machinery, the equipment, the distancing. Let me turn to Chiranjeev, Saluja at Premier. What has been how have you been impacted?
Thank you, Eckhart, and thank you, Informa, for organizing this session. Yeah, for the COVID-19, what we have seen is that solar industry is one of the fastest growing industry in India. And due to the COVID-19, not only India, but the crisis has brought the entire world to a standstill. So we have suffered our bit too. The solar industry imports almost 80% of its supply chain in India from China. And delay and discrepancies in the entire supply chain all the way from raw material to spare parts has been a challenge. As Dr. Doshi said, manpower shortage due to lockdown is always again been a challenge. So we at Premier, we took adequate measures to stock in material for longer periods as against what we used to do earlier. We have initiated, measures to support our employees physically, emotionally, for their well-being, whether at work or at home. Eckhart, the ripple effects of COVID-19 pandemic are difficult to model and assess because global businesses can begin to mitigate supply chain distributions. What we need to do is find alternative supply chain scenarios, especially in the case of the virus emerging in different territories, activate pre-approved parts or raw material substitutions, and adopt allocations to customer pricing strategies. So we need to learn to live with the COVID-19 now, and I think this is going to get better as we go ahead.
Yeah, we'll talk more about supply chains and how they've been disrupted and what we can do about it, and local manufacturing very soon. Manish, at Jinko Solar, a global leader since many years in producing high-quality modules. How has it been at Jinko?
I'll give you the perspective from China manufacturing side, because the other two gentlemen, Mr. Doshi and Mr. Saluja, had pointed out the concerns from the Indian manufacturing. So just to give a perspective of impacted during that time was, the factories were running 24/7 in several shifts. We couldn't afford to stop for a single minute. So the team and the staff, which was inside the factory, had to stay in for the time, there was an impact, and we have to manage the show with 30 to 40% of the workforce, which was inside at that point of time, and could not afford them to go out and allow others to get into the factory because of the spread outside. So we could still manage the, continuity of the factories by 30 to 40% of its, peak time. But yes, gradually when the things started to normalize in China, and we had certain quarantine, protocols, we started, allowing the outside workforce to enter with due safety precautions and using all those distancing and, safe distancing and masks. This was the first time ever, because China was the first country which got affected. So, they made their own protocols to start the manufacturing at the earliest. So I think after 45 days of seeing that, running with 40% of efficiency, we started getting back to the normal levels. And within 2 months, I think we were back to 100%. So that was from China manufacturing. But here, back in India, on our personal side, it's interesting scenario, because when China started to go back to normal, India started to get impacted, and we had to start working from homes. It was, coming as a surprise, because as Mr. Doshi pointed out, he had a routine of 6 flights a week, at least not as big as him, but yeah, at least 3 flights a week is also normal for me. And it all stopped in a sudden. We had several order finalizations, discussions, which were going on, and we had to stop that. But yes, we adopted to the new normal of web meetings and, virtual meetings, whether it is within the teams or with our clients, with our, other stakeholders. It brought us to a new kind of work-life balance. Earlier it used to be more work and less for ourselves, but now it has become more for ourselves and less going to offices and less traveling. So it has become on the negative side of work-life balance, so to say. Mm-hmm. So that was, my experience so far. I think we will continue on other aspects as and when the right point comes up. So.
Yeah, interesting, Manish, your perspective as a global module manufacturer. Henry, you're also a manufacturer, but you're over on the power electronics side. You're also a global player. How has COVID-19, the pandemic, impacted LS Electric?
Hi, everyone. My name is Choi. First of all, I'm very honored to be here presenting our company and alongside all these, CEO and the directors. I'm the India country head of LS Electric. At this moment, I have everyone, first of all, safe and to stay strong during this difficult time. And we all know that, current pandemic of the COVID-19 has the best technically affected so many people's life and day in, day out. And South Korea is one of the most suffered country all these days, probably, just after China. Basically, that we went through from last February and March and so on. So currently, our total cases are approximately 20,000 cases, which is like, if you just look at the numbers, which is, still quite pretty low, considering its density, because South Korea is one of the most dense country, even more dense the country than India. So at the beginning, the people are afraid of the possible coming diplomatic disadvantage. So some country not to reveal the new cases or even manipulate the number, things like that. And as a country-wise, our company and also our country's policy is very, very simple, and it stick to our main principle and openness and transparency and integrity. LS Electric as a part of LG Group is doing our responsibility, to contribute our society to have a better and a safer environment, including such kind of donation to overcome this pandemic situation. Because we are a country who has also experienced such kind of the viruses before. Back in, if I'm not much mistaken, 2015, and MERS was quite spread in the Far East Asian country, and also in early 2000 in SARS. Those are similar type of the virus that what we're experiencing right now. So basically, as personally, I'm just trying to adapt this as new normal. And we are pretty ready to work like this. So one of the major impact to our company wise, because as we are also the solar module manufacturer, or also that we are more electrical power products, which is more supplying to the PV industry. We are more now to focus on the factory automation, because imagine the one of our labors got positive cases, which means that we need to shut down all the factory sites. It will eventually be affecting our level of the productivity. So now that we are more focused on the factory automation, this enabled us to operate our factory with human interference, while of course specific areas we still need to handled by human. So one of the new technologies we have conducted during this time is that IoT, Internet of Things, helmet-based inspection for our factory acceptance tests. Because basically, we cannot, as the Mr. Dr. Doshi and the Mrs. Saluja say, we cannot travel. So we need to adapt to this kind of the web meeting. So how we conducting factory acceptance tests is through the helmet. The inspector, they control the helmet and monitor the helmet. Then finally they approve. So this is the things we are doing. Thank you.
Yeah, interesting, Henry, what manufacturers are offering, and maybe the push to automation and IoT as we learn to live with this pandemic, and it could be one outcome. We'll talk about the acceleration of the adoption of technology. Let's turn to the downstream side. We have two very distinguished and big players who are developing projects. I think, Pinaki, you're more focused on C&I, commercial industrial rooftop. And Santosh, of course, I know Enerparc, being PV Magazine being based in Germany, where Enerparc is headquartered up in Hamburg. How has this pandemic impacted your downstream business? What are the challenges you faced? Maybe Pinaki, you can start.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks for that. So basically, by the way, we are not a rooftop player and all. We have globally a portfolio of 1.5 gigawatts, and now we have locked in a pipeline of 2 gigawatts more, storage of 2 gigawatt hours. And in India itself, our portfolio is nearly a gigawatt. So I mean, we are sort of a diversified player. We are basically in C&I large ground mount projects as well as rooftop, and also in utility projects all across the world. So in fact, rooftop is just like 10% of our entire portfolio. 90% is either like large format projects and massive energy storage projects. So now in terms of what happened for us in terms of a very high level picture, I'll give you. Then I will just touch upon the impacts from financial standpoint, from operations, from the people standpoint, and the customer side and the government. So at a very high level, so it gave us an opportunity to rebalance the business, because it just showed that this is something that is renewables are actually very strong as a sort of as a future source to replace completely the conventional sources, because it just showed that you can actually continue operating renewable plants even in the middle of a lockdown, because you're not having global fuel transport issues there anymore. And so that is something overall, it actually sort of took us back to the drawing board, that yes, we need to really accelerate our path to dispatchable clean energy, because that is where the convergence between the different technologies is also going to happen. So at a big picture level, that's why outside India, I'm sort of also did a massive energy storage projects that they have locked up, and also continued their sort of expansion not only in solar but now also in wind in Europe. And in India also the same strategy happened in terms of balancing our portfolio at a strategic level. So now half of our portfolio is utility based projects, half is CNI. Now coming back to the different aspects of government. So on the government side, actually this entire lockdown and this entire pandemic actually made the government interactions much more efficient. Very frequently we have this meetings with the government sort of key stakeholders there, and pushed our issues in a very efficient manner, in a very collaborative manner. So as a result, a lot of time that used to be wasted and all in setting up meetings and all, that's gone. So it's just brought about a lot of efficiency in the government side. And at the same time, although there is a lot of support from the central government in many cases, but there are certain cases where the state governments are not actually falling in line with what they need to do. So this needs more effort. And on the central government also, there are certain things, efficiency is improved, but somehow there has been certain reactions which are basically based on the current situation. So I would not say this is the new normal. I am just waiting for to get out of this new normal, and we'll get out of it. Okay. So decisions cannot be taken based on something that has happened, which is a force majeure event. So I think so the government is trying on this end to sort of have this like self dependency, but we have to live in an interdependent world. You cannot do without it. Just because there is a pandemic, we have to be in an interdependent world. There's capital from all across the world that is coming into India. So does the supply chain has to be international. So it cannot be just like we start making everything in India, and then the investors also, they should be only investing from India only. So I don't think so that is the right direction. So good and bad, that's on the government side. On the financial side, based on there are some moratoriums that are given by the banks and all, which is fine. And the financial markets still remain very interested. We have been able to successfully financially close projects, draw loans, get equity, and all those things have been happening. So the huge interest in renewable stays very strong from the financial standpoint. Third, in terms of the customer standpoint. So customer standpoint, we see the continued bidding activity on the utility that keeps on going on. So that's ongoing, that's not stopped. And because that was anyway online auctions on the utility side. And also in terms of CNI customers, now CNI customers are looking for large procurements, 100, 200, 300 megawatt kind of procurements now, because they see this is a very good opportunity to help them raise their, sort of reduce their operating cost. Because we give them long-term solar, and that reduces their operating cost, and that is what is needed in this kind of a situation. So on the BD front, things have actually sort of become a bit efficient, stronger also. Then the operations, the project front actually, see the way developers and like power generators are organized, we have actually also having operations in remote parts of the country. So the construction activities have continued to happen, but obviously it has slowed down. So what we used to do in like 3 months will now take 6 months, but still it is happening. It is not, it has come to a halt. Okay, with all the sort of safety measures and all, because unlike the module manufacturers where there are concentration of people in a very small area, here the large land parcels are there, hundreds of acres, and you can spread them out. So operations is going, but obviously the supply chain has slowed down as far as the operations is concerned. And the last thing is the people. So what we've also discovered is now, and I used to be a bit close to it, that I wanted to have people in one place, one office and all. Now, as a company, we have actually embraced regionalization a lot, because globally also AMP has core markets like Australia, Japan, India, US, and in Europe. So in India also now we decentralized and created like regional offices, and we are collaborating very effectively on Zoom. We have reduced our, let's say, a lot of the GNA because of this travel and all, which has actually really come down. There's no point going, let's say you go to Bangalore, you have to spend 5 hours and all to get there, where you can get on a call on Zoom, and it's become much more efficient. So we have become much more efficient as a company in terms of the people. And so these are the various things I would say that I have observed based on the situation today.
Yeah, very interesting, Pinaki. Those were many advantages solar offers to corporates and the technology adoption. I mean, we see it with this platform, our REI E-Expo today, how well we can talk to each other in different locations. It's a great example of this. And I'd like to turn to Santosh. So what's been your experience at Enerparc?
Hey Eckhart, so thanks for asking me to speak, and also Rajneesh and Informa Marketing, thanks for organizing this up. Northern Europe, the construction in our projects started off fairly early. In fact, we just had a break of roughly 45 days, and we were able to resume close to 300 megawatts that we are investing and building in Northern Europe fairly seamlessly. Southern Europe, there was a bit of a slowdown that continued for a while, but construction sites started reopening. Spain, of course, continues to have problem, but the rest of the parts are going good. Australian sites also started opening up for us. So in all these three different locations, I think the restart happened a little faster. India, on the other hand, for entire 2.5 months, our construction sites, close to 11 of them were closed. In the month of June, we were able to start them up with roughly around 25-30% of the people working on sites. And as most of the panelists have been mentioning, migrant labor moving back, the labor dependency of construction in India, which has been traditionally the way, right? That needs a rethink. I think that is the awakening that came in. Go more for automation, try and not go for labor intensive activities in construction as much as you can, try and do pre-assemblies wherever you can. So these new ways of thinking is what we started doing even in the new projects that we are designing right now. So that's one big shift. As far as business is concerned, in terms of the let us say invoicing cycles and the ability to actually bill and continue, about 40% as what it was just before the COVID. Work is on hand, but the ability to actually invoice, run, build, construct projects is slowed down. So around 40% rate is what we are able to do. New orders. Now, there was a big vacuum, I would say, for about 3 to 4 months. But in the last 2 months, we have been able to book some new orders. And now the new orders, especially in the C&I space, is coming pretty well. There is an awareness in the consumers that renewable energy is something that will save costs. People want to save money in operations right now. So to that extent, C&I customers, in fact, the inquiries are pretty good. They've come back to, in fact, November, December, January levels in terms of a new inquiries coming in the C&I side. So that's a good plus. In terms of, I would say, the learning for me from a business perspective, we always had this rule that cash is the king and the cash flow is the prince, so to speak. And we kept this as a single motto going forward. And during the crisis period, it came in very, very handy. So we were able to control the cash very well, able to control the cash flow very well. So learning of continuing to do that is, I think, a takeoff that I have.
Thank you, Santosh. I'm looking at the topics, and I think why don't we dive into the whole supply chain issue, which and the fragility of supply chains has been tested by the COVID-19 pandemic. The ability to source quality masks and medicines, and it's also been a big issue in the PV sector. And Dr. Hitesh, Doshi, you've been a big champion of local manufacturing in India. Give us your perspective. I know India has struggled a bit to get local manufacturing to have a bigger share of the market. How do you see the pandemic impacting this whole discussion, and what would you like to see?
Thank you. Thank you again. As we all know that the overall installation has came down in the country, and the statistics also says that. So overall the demand has came down. That's number one. And we have the association of the module manufacturers, and we discuss. I think the Indian capacities are not utilized more than 30-35%. Still, most of the modules are coming from China. So in such scenario, when the cash flow is the challenge to the manufacturer, demands are the lower. So it was really challenging. Some of the companies like us who had some good export orders, they could continue and they could run the operation full time. And some of the companies had a small DCR portion, which is probably a 10% of our demand in the country today. They could continue. In general, during this time, manufacturer, in my opinion, has faced huge problems because of the many expenses were going on continuously. They are not stopped even during the lockdown. And the cash flow, the payments, what they have to make, they were also to be continued. The demand side, what the manufacturers needs now is there are some inequalities at present. And some of them are, the biggest one is the pass-through, what we have in India. And these benefits are not given to the Indian manufacturers, but the benefits are given when you import the modules. So such kind of the few challenges are there. If this has been brought to the equalization level, where we call that the buyer gets the same benefit, he buys from India or he buys from the outside, or the sellers or manufacturers in India have the same level playing ground. We hope this will come soon. Once this comes in, I think manufacturers will be able to run their capacities at least 60-70% of what they have today.
Chiranjeev, over at Premier, how do you see the situation?
Yeah, thank you, Eckhart. Yeah. So, the pandemic, we feel, has given everyone time to think about how interdependent the world is. As Pinaki was saying, that we all need to coexist and we need to have, working with China closely. So not only the solar industry, but many industries in India with significant support from the government are now putting in effort to become self-reliant. So self-realization was not only for the individuals, but also for the entire nation. And we feel that this is definitely Make in India too. So as far as the solar industry in India is concerned, the domestic content requirement market has taken the local industry by storm. We have government tenders which mandate use of domestically manufactured cells and modules. So this has given a great boost to the domestic manufacturers. And we at Premier, in line with the Atmanirbhar Bharat and Self-Reliant India from Prime Minister Modi, we are doing our bit by setting up a 750 megawatt per annum solar cell line and a 750 megawatt module line, which is going to be the latest technology, the large format modules and the large format cells. So the industry, the Indian solar industry, I feel, is moving slowly towards, having the entire value chain. We need to look at ingots and wafers to be made in India. And my feeling is the future of solar industry in India is as bright as the sun.
Okay, so thank you, Chiranjeev. So just turning to you, Manish, how do you see this? You manufacture mainly in China, but you also manufacture in other countries, and how do you see the situation on the ground in India?
Yeah, so thanks for this very, very crucial question, because at this juncture, when everybody is getting impacted because of COVID, interdependencies are the key. What Pinaki mentioned, and just now Saluja also pointed out, we cannot survive without support of each other in this time frame, whether it is investment or manufacturing or a supply chain. Like in India, also we have seen in China, we are also dependent upon our partners who are helping us build up our module manufacturing and cell lines. We are dependent upon sometimes the silicon material suppliers as well as ingot suppliers. They are our backbone, and when we are impacted by because of their issues, recently there were crises of wafers, so we are impacted greatly because of that. So I think in a way we are all interdependent. Looking from the China's perspective, uh, the way we stand today, Jinko has global manufacturing. It is not only limited to China. It has more than 4 gigawatt of manufacturing base outside of China, which is mainly supporting to US and other European markets. Having said that, it also doesn't mean that China is the only demand market for Jinko. We have this demand coming from all across the globe. Only 20% of demand that we cater is from China. So in a way, we are totally a kind of a balanced organization, be it comes to the manufacturing or it comes to the shipments. Our majority of shipment is going to US, and second is Middle East, and third is China, and then followed by India. So likewise, our supply chain, which is mainly from China, but yes, it is spread over various provinces. So in case of any one province getting impacted because of flood, because of any other virus issue, any other supply chain issue, we have other suppliers who are supporting us from other provinces. So in this time frame, we have to look around for all such partners who can join us to support the solar industry as a whole, because as Pinaki mentioned, India is growing by leaps and bounds in terms of installation numbers. As we speak, we are around 40 gigawatt installed capacity and close to 25 gigawatts undergoing implementations. So with these kind of numbers in mind, we cannot afford to miss these deadlines, because all our key buyers, the clients, the developers have their securities with the state or central governments for completing the projects on time, and we are bound to our clients to supply them on time. So we can't afford to miss any such deadlines, and we are there to support them. We have to take all the necessary efforts to ensure that we have a robust supply chain which can come handy at the time of such crisis. So that's my take on it, sir.
Thank you. Before we had this session, Pinaki, you mentioned that we talked about technology and also this trend towards convergence. And by convergence, we were talking about solar plus wind or solar plus storage. I know there's been some very big tenders in India from the government involving storage, even during the lockdown period. Maybe you can talk about this trend you see, and maybe it links up also to this PPA and corporate, that maybe storage is also becoming increasingly an option for the corporate market. So I'd be interested in your views on that. Microphone. Pinaki, you need to turn on your mic. Thank you.
Yeah. So I also wanted to weigh in a little bit on the previous question in terms of the impact on the supply chain, because at the end of the day, I mean, we have the responsibility to generate power and deliver the power on time. So, and then I will take the second question of yours. So on the first thing, see, if you step back, there is a pandemic that has happened. As a result, and it is still going now, it has disrupted the supply chain anyway. Okay. There is a global supply chain, it's disrupted because of the various safety measures, international travel restrictions and all. Now, when there is a risk, and then on the other hand, there is a objective. The objective we should never forget is to generate clean energy at an affordable cost. Okay. Now, that objective has to be delivered. And to deliver that objective, essentially, you need a low-cost supply chain and a efficient supply chain. Efficiency is anyway disrupted because of this pandemic. Okay. Now, in terms of the cost of the supply chain, using artificial measures that the government is trying to do now is not advisable because it further disrupts it in terms of the because the duties that the safeguard duty was extended. Because as a generator of power, the last thing you want when you're actually fighting in a situation like this is another level of uncertainty that the government has created now. Because there's no point, because I always ask the question that, okay, safeguard duty is good that you did for 2 years, but where is that money gone? Has that money gone into manufacturing? No, because I know the manufacturers also at a very close level, they still do not get any subsidized power. They do not get any manufacturing subsidies. They do not get any interest rate subvention and all, low cost loans. Even when the factory was shut down for a couple of months, they have to pay salaries. They did not get support from the government to pay the salaries. Okay, whereas certain developed economies have done that. So we are happy to support manufacturing of modules in India and cells, but we should be sure that the money is going to manufacturing. And second is that in this kind of a situation, when the supply chain is anywhere disrupted, one should not fiddle around with the rules and regulation, create more uncertainty, because we are anyway in an uncertain world today. And more uncertainty means more risk. More risk means more cost. So at the end of the day, what happens? You end up creating more expensive power, or you delay the generation of power. Okay. So, and also we need to remember that different parts of the world have reacted differently in terms of getting this thing under control. If there are certain parts of the world which has managed it better and their factories are up and running, why are we creating artificial trade barriers there? Because see, on one side, you're creating a free market in terms of discovering prices in auctions. On the other side, you're trying to control cost. So both the things cannot go hand in hand. It has to be a free market, means a complete free market. I am a great believer in buying from like things from India. Mr. Doshi is obviously a key supplier for us, and Jinko also. So basically, we have want a diversified supply chain. So my view is that the government should. I'm not sure if there are any stakeholders there, but it is our right to at least say that manufacturing in India doesn't mean only manufacturing cells and modules. We are also manufacturing in India. We are investing millions of billions of dollars into manufacturing power in India, which I call power factories. Okay, those factories employ hundreds of people. They require hundreds of people to build those factories. Then they supply power to, let's say, in the commercial industrial space, to, let's say, pharma factories, FMCG factories, data centers. We are using data now. It may be powered by renewable energy today. Okay, now if I increase the cost of renewable energy, it has an impact on the profitability of the data center customers or the pharma customers who are actually producing important drugs now. You are actually hitting their profitability, and they're also manufacturing in India. So manufacturing is a much larger thing, because it is in the CNI space only we have seen that we are supporting so many companies like automobiles, pharma, education, hospitals. So manufacturing cannot be fixated only on module and cell. It is a much larger topic, and I think so the government has to have this vision and sort of move forward. So I am really not happy with the way things have been done in terms of creating uncertainty on the cost side when there wasn't any uncertainty. Now moving to a second question, which is basically convergence. So the convergence is also happening. That is a positive side of the pandemic, that is saying. So people have said that, okay, now we have to quickly accelerate our race towards dispatchable clean energy. So that is the holy grail. So yes, solar and wind, both are commercially viable technologies. Both are cost efficient today. Storage is also commercially not that viable, I would say, but it is getting there. But when you blend in, you actually have dispatchable clean energy. Now, when you have dispatchable clean energy, then that is the sort of the death knell for the conventional sources, right? So now that has accelerated it. As a result, on both the markets, be the CNI market or the utility market, we see the impact. On the CNI market, we see a lot of, let's say, like requirements from large customers who are looking at virtual power plants, okay, who are looking at dispatchable clean energy, because the banking requirement has become tighter in India. Certain states allow banking, which is in a way the grid is allowing you to store energy. Certain states are moving towards this 15-minute kind of a banking. So basically there is no banking. So we need to really accelerate our race to dispatchable clean energy to be able to serve the customers. And also the utility side, the government has done really good innovative bids there in terms of peak power tenders, hybrid tenders. In Gujarat, the government is doing huge hybrid solar parks, solar and wind parks. Then we have round-the-clock power. So we see the trend of convergence happening faster than we thought it would be, and in a way, the pandemic has actually accelerated that convergence. So that is, I mean, those are my comments on the question that you asked and the question that you did not ask me, but I wanted to answer. So.
Yeah, thank you, Pinaki. Maybe we turn and give Dr. Hitesh Doshi a chance to respond how the government of India should support local manufacturing. And it was interesting you said that low-cost clean energy actually allows many manufacturers in India to produce with clean energy competitively their products. So it's actually something you don't want to increase that input. So interesting discussion, Dr. Doshi. What's your view on this?
In my opinion, this is a quite large economic question. When we say increasing the low-cost power, this is like, first we have to think that when you have the production in India, you have the money in your pocket. It is going from one pocket to another pocket to the third pocket. But end of the day, it stays in the country. It increases your purchasing capacity. It increases your power consumption if the money stayed in India. But if that money goes out of the India, it doesn't come back. So you don't have the money for the reinvestment or spending. So when it comes to the deglobalization, what we have been talking worldwide now, and the change in supply chain, even if we are paying a 10% or 20% more power price, but if we are increasing the power consumption in a country by having more and more industry and more consumption of the power, I think that is better. So economical power, in my opinion, is not the price what you get the power, the price where the people can consume the power and they can pay for that power. So even if I make a power 30% cheaper, but if I don't have the demand in the country, in my opinion, that is not the economical power. So this is a little bit different what I think. Coming back to the local manufacturing here, the government has started providing the support. The first thing came up with the DCR tenders. Now the import duties are coming in. Of course, they are not enough, but at least there is something better than nothing. So 15% safeguard duty is going on, and we expect another 10 or 20% duty, and which government has announced that it will go up to 40%. Important is definitely restrictions and the barriers, but simultaneously we need the country to focus on the manufacturing as a core industry. Like Mr. Pinaki said that in this country, you pay highest price probably in the commercial activities when you buy the power. So you buy the more power, you pay the more price. So you generate the power at even ₹2.50 by using the solar panels or requesting amp energy to provide the power to us. But we cannot use that fully. We have to pay another ₹8 for that power consumption. So overall, the thought process in a country to become a large manufacturer, it is a land or it is a power or other regulations, needs to be drastically changed. What happened in this country, we have been fighting between capitalists and socialists 50 years back. And more the industrial norms became the socialist. And that is the reason this country became a little bit behind in the manufacturing. So movement has started. We are quite positive about that. Almost all manufacturers in this country are expanding. But in our opinion, a lot needs to be done to make India a manufacturing hub, or I will say the second choice to the world next to the China as a manufacturing sector.
Thank you, Dr. Doshi. I think we have about 10 minutes left, and I think, after all, this is the visionary panel. Let's look ahead. We have the big goal of 100 gigawatts of solar by 2022. Let's maybe even look a few more years ahead to 2025. What do you see for the Indian PV industry? How do you envision technology adoption, convergence, the corporate take-up of solar, right now PV has about a 10% share of power capacity in India. Where do you see that going? Maybe Manish, what's your vision for the next 5 years?
Yeah, thanks for asking. It's a very, very tricky question to answer, and I'm the first one. So let me give my thoughts, and then I'll request other panelists to add up to that. First of all, see, when we look for the future from here, India is definitely a very exciting market. Already been through more than 30 to 40% of its target installations, and really on the right track to reach 200 gigawatts very soon. How should we arrive at 100 gigawatts? At what price levels? At what kind of import export mix? At what kind of renew mix for C&I, renew mix for utility scale? What should be the overall goal? So just by saying 100 gigawatt by so and so time frame does not support the Indian economy. We should know holistically how it should help the country grow from where it is, by way of lowering the cost, by way of right mix of maybe solar, wind, storage, by way of right import export. Many things have to be looked into, just or rather than looking at 100 gigawatt targets. So my take here is India needs to always in the hunt for lowering the tariffs, have to always make sure that we are always in the hunt for technologies which are supporting such lower tariffs. How we could do that? So I have a couple of points to share here, and these are by way of how we can lowering the LCOE, how to ensure that we are constantly reducing the tariffs, and how we are managing our profitability or DISCOM's financial health. So one way is to reduce the cost of raw materials or reduce the margins, which I don't foresee in the times to come, because no foreign investor would like to reduce its IRR expectations. No supplier would like to reduce its margins on the raw materials. So best way is to innovatively make products efficient. So how to do that? So with the same cost of per watt peak, if we can offer a bigger frame size or a bigger watt peak in the same frame size, we could afford to reduce the tariff or reduce the LCOE for the large developers. By doing that, they become efficient, they become competitive, they win their target projects from government, and they are there in the race for long term. They make a sustainable asset as well. So they don't have to cut corners, and they can still win the various projects. Second
Great.
point is,
I'm looking at the clock, Manish. We only have 6 minutes.
So allow me 1 minute, and then I will like to conclude.
Go ahead.
So second thing is we have to also align with the global demand and supply. So what I have seen is in India there is a trend to always delay the order finalization. So I'm a Chinese supplier representing Indian market, and I know my Indian clients, they look at the clock, from the COD of their project, and they always place the order at the last minute. Sometimes they are clashing with the global peak demand. By view of that, they always pay a higher price, whereas they could have afforded to a lower price when they place an order at a global maybe low demand time frame. So that's my tip to my key clients, that they should not always align themselves to the global peak demand, which is more or less Q4 of every year, because China and other countries have a calendar year basis, whereas India has a financial year basis. So we should find another time of their ordering which help them to reduce their overall costing. And third, we should all try to reduce the overall power cost by all possible means. Copper is not going to come down in the cost, aluminum is not going to come down on cost, and so are the silicon materials. So we have to find other innovative solutions for the site design, for the innovative and high efficiency modules, inverters, so that they could overall be lower in their LCOE. That's my take.
Santosh, Enerparc's been a leader in lowering solar LCOE. So how do you see the next 5 years? Where are we going?
Well, just two things. I'll just summarize it off. Why is the cost high? The cost is high because the cost of finance is high. The cost of the product is only a portion of the entire LCOE. The cost of raising money. The cost of raising money is a cost of infidelity, lack of trust. Lack of trust in policy consistency on one hand, lack of trust in the say-do, the gap between the two, in the powers to be and the governance, and the fact that what Mr. Joshi said, are we a socialist economy with controllers behind everything, an insurance regulator, aviation regulator, energy regulator, or is it a free market that we really allow market forces of demand supply to take over? It's high time we decide that and step on one boat and not on both the boats with one leg each. So I think these three things will make the cost of the money come down. When the cost of the money come down, which is, if I am not mistaken, 60-65% contributing into the LCOE today, the cost of the goods that all of us are talking is the remaining 20-30% ish inside it. Yeah. So cost of money coming down, fidelity, better say-do, policy consistency, transparency, what also Pinaki was mentioning. You want to impose a duty, do that, but give a roadmap, a visibility, so that we know for the next 12 months what's going to happen. And not that when the container lands in the port, you realize that, oh my God, next day there may be a duty. Yeah. So this is the piece. The second side to it, on the technology and the convergence part of it, single renewable energy source can never, ever be the source. Solar for sure is doing far better. Wind also is an equation inside it. Storage will come and sit on top of both of them. And storage will provide the flywheel effect of kind of harmonizing things out. But up to what extent? 30% penetration into the grid, people have seen and tested it. Beyond that, in other countries, they haven't experienced it for long run. So until and unless the storage cost comes down, and not with lithium-ion batteries, but with flow batteries, with saltwater batteries, with what is called energy batteries. Yeah, with that, if it comes down, then of course, wind, solar, conventional, gas-based power coming together, and smart meters with distributed energy as the core theme could be what we may end up becoming, provided we fix the first side of our house in order. That's my vision and dream, both put together.
Thank you, Santosh. Thank you. Henry, a few words from you. What do you see coming? I think we have 1 or 2 more minutes. I'm sorry if you don't all have a chance to contribute to this vision last bit of the conversation, but thank you all. I'm not sure when they're going to cut us off, but Henry, a few words from you. Mike, Henry. Your mic is off.
Yeah, okay. I'm gonna make a little quick. Thank you for your, all the CEOs and direct level, the visions is good for me to understand. I mean, basically, we are an Indian manufacturer. All our manufacturing facility in the Far East, in the Vietnam and South Korea. But it's good to know that, how the policy is moving on, and basically, South Korean government, we also have a big vision of the increasing the renewable capacity. What is coming right now, 10% out of that, that we have a plan to increase up to 30% by 2030. So
maybe that's a good way, Henry, to finish.
Okay.
I think we have to finish it. It's a global energy transition. Let's work together. Let's keep it a global industry. And thank you all for participating in this CEO panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Eckhart, for this opportunity.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Eckhart.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Manish. Thanks, Chiranjeev, Pinaki, Mr. Doshi, Henry, Santoshi. Wonderful. Thank you all. Yeah. And
thank you so much. It's such a pleasure. Great deliberations. In fact, we are always in the paucity of time. Otherwise, we would have loved to continue these discussions. In fact, we're listening from all stalwarts that the business is coming back to track. Obviously, India having the labor problems, but I'm sure the technology will take its technological advancements would actually fill in the gap between the labor supply. So I really thank.
Amit, I think while thanking, you have gone on mute. Anyway, I think. Yeah, Amit, carry on.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. So I want to thank Eckhart for his time, that he took out this time right from Berlin, right in the morning that he came on board. I want to thank Dr. Doshi for his time. Thank you, Mr. Khatelsal. Santosh sir, it's been a pleasure to have you on board. Mr. Saluja, a pleasure. It's always nice to have you here. And congratulations for the 25 years. Mr. Narula, thank you so much. Mr. Bhattacharyya, thank you. And thank you so much, Henry, for coming all the way from Korea. And it's been a lovely deliberation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah. Good luck. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have a presentation by Huawei now. The presentation topic is how artificial intelligence drives fully connected smarter solar plants. Our presenter from Huawei would be Mr. Steve. He's the CTO, APAC Smart Business Huawei. Can we have the presentation, please?